Everyone, it's Emily Fox. It is time to talk about my quarterly favorites. I like to do them once in a while to remind you of a top 5-ish that I've read in the last couple of months. In the last 3 months, I've read a lot of books actually. However, it hasn't been the best reading time. I feel like the first quarter of the year, I never find that many favorites. I still have enough to do a top 5. 1 or 2 of them are probably more like special mentions, but it's okay. I still have books that I would highly recommend. If anything, it gives me a chance to talk about books that I might not mention a ton later on, but I do think they're worth it. I did overall enjoy them. Everything in here is over 4 stars, so let's get to it. Let's start with the chunkiest of them all, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon, which is the prequel of The Priory of the Orange Tree, which was an adult fantasy standalone that came out a few years ago. Everyone loved it, myself included. This one is set a couple hundred years prior, and even though it's still a big battle between good and evil, also with dragons, also with some interesting magic and a lot of world building, it's also really big, and it's also kind of gay. Actually, book 1 was a little gay. This one is very, very gay. I think you can see how much the author just improves book by book, because I found that all the point of views were a lot more solid in this one. I feel like there wasn't any that I liked more than the other ones. I was really curious to see what was going to happen to everyone. There were some really interesting twists. I do think it was a little bit long. To be fair, I have been in a reading slump, so I probably should blame that, but a little long towards the end. But overall, really, really enjoyed it. Easily one of the best books that I've read so far this year. And I haven't been reading a ton of fantasy, and I read this whole thing, so it goes to show this was a good one. That's the one benefit with hardcovers. Then we have some sci-fi. This one is very accessible for sci-fi. This is The Wall, which the concept is just so right up my alley. You have this woman, she is vacationing in the mountain in Austria. And the people she's with, they go in the city, and then something happens and she realizes that she is stuck behind an invisible wall, and she will be there for years to come. You're following her story through her eyes. She's like writing her story, and at the moment she's doing that, she has been there for 2.5 years. So you get a lot of like day-to-day life, be warned. A lot of like trying to farm and just survive. She's alone with a dog, a cat, and a cow for companions, and I got insanely invested in everyone in here. And I have to say, it's incredibly bleak and depressing, but that's definitely my jam. And also, you still get, you know, little like interesting thoughts about the way we live. I would call this like a dystopian. She can't really see, you know, what's going on, even though it's an invisible wall. You know, she's in the mountains, so she kind of see a little bit from far away, but she doesn't know. But a lot of questions, not many answers, but I was, again, very emotionally invested for the ending. And I think that if you like dystopian, kind of post-apocalyptic, survivalist kind of stories, you should try this one. I feel like it's interesting to see one where the main character is an older female character and it's not filled with like essay scenes. So this was great. Broke my heart. Loved it. Speaking of older female characters, Remnant Population, which I've been reading this because they reminded me of a book that I read last year. So I've been trying to find anything that would be similar. So in this one, you're following this woman. She is in her 70s. She has lived her whole life on this planet owned by a corporation. She did the things. She got married. She had babies. She raised them. Her husband passed away. And now they're being kicked off the planet. And she just refuses to go. So she hides behind and decides to stay. But turns out she might not be alone, because one day people from the corporation are sent back and she hears them all get through the radio. And I would still call this one pretty accessible for anyone that doesn't read a ton of sci-fi. What I liked is that the vibes at first you kind of get like that she's grumpy, she's older, she doesn't really want to deal with anyone. But then throughout the book you get more and more of her backstory, and I feel like things start making a lot more sense, a lot more reasons why she is the way she is. And I really like the way that, at least at first, you get her embracing finally doing whatever she wants. You know, she doesn't want to wear shoes, she doesn't want to wear like underwear. I'm like, I feel you. I feel like if I get to my 70s, I don't want to wear a bra. Like, I want to not wear shoes when I'm doing some gardening outside, and that's how she's feeling. So I feel like I completely understood her throughout the book. And yeah, this was actually kind of refreshing. I do feel like the ending was a bit too sweet for my taste, but we've already established I like dark books, so it's okay. And yes, do recommend this if you like First Contact with Aliens and you're craving something different. A complete change of pace, we have a classic. I read and loved Norton South, which I hadn't really heard that much about it, to be honest. I read a lot of French classic, not so much English ones. I'm kind of surprised that this is that well known, not because it wasn't good, but because a woman wrote a book that contains like, that is like pro-union and like a lot of like social commentaries, which I really wasn't expecting. So you're following this young girl, she lives with her parents in the countryside, and then her father decides to not be a priest anymore and they go live in the city. There's big manufacturers, kind of get it on the cover a little bit, and breaks, you know, her mom's heart. I feel like the daughter, she's really young, and I feel like she is way too responsible for the emotional well-being of her parents, but that's a different story. Like I said, a lot of social commentary that I really wasn't expecting. I feel like, not that I didn't think, you know, women could do it. It's more that I'm surprised this was actually published. I really didn't care for the romance. I felt like it came out of nowhere. It was an attempt to go from like enemies to lovers, but like comes out of nowhere. I hated it. Like hating each other, yes, I was all for it. But then I feel like the jump made no sense to me and I didn't really care for it. So a little long, but I overall, like I said, really enjoy the social commentaries. And I feel like if you're looking to try different classics, I would highly recommend this one. I'm actually just realizing all of these were written by women. The last one is more of a special mention because, like I said, not all of these were 5 stars like this one, but this took me by surprise, so I think it deserves the mention. For Your Own Good. I went into it with zero expectations. Actually, I picked this up during my Read It or Unhaul It challenge where I grabbed books from this giant bag. These are all books that are on my shelves unread, and I randomly pick them up and I have to read them or unhaul them. And this one came up, completely forgot kind of that I own this. But this is like kind of dark academia. Like you have a teacher that basically is murdering everyone. It's a bit like light-hearted. This was a little bit like, I want to say light. It's probably not the best way of describing it, but I was really invested. I feel like things get crazier and crazier, but I was really enjoying it. Again, completely zero expectation to, oh, this is actually fun, and read it really quickly. Again, I was dealing with the reading slump, so this was quite different for me, but if you're looking for like a fun murder mystery with a teacher getting revenge over trying to get his revenge for their own good, right? On the students because they're rich and he isn't. It's not exactly what's going on, but you know, this was fun. This was fun. So that's it. 5 books that I have read in the last 3 months that I think are worth checking out. Definitely let me know if you have read any of these because I want to hear your thoughts and I want to know, what are the best books that you have read so far this year? Anything that you would recommend for us? And I will put more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.